The Valley of Shadows. Gather around and let me tell you a tale, a story passed down through the generations, whispered in the dark corners of ancient inns, and murmured by the fireside on long, cold nights. It is a story of fear and darkness, of a time when the line between the living and the dead was as thin as the veil of mist that clings to the ground in the early morning. Our tale begins in the late 1800s, in a small, isolated village nestled deep within the Carpathian Mountains. This village, known to the locals as Villa Umbriler, or the Valley of Shadows, was a place shrouded in mystery and dread. The villagers lived in constant fear of the forest that surrounded their homes, a forest that seemed to harbor secrets and whispers from a time long forgotten. In this village, where the sun seldom shone, and the nights were long and cold, an old legend loomed like a specter over the lives of the people. It was the legend of the Countess Maria Kalinesti, a woman whose beauty was matched only by her cruelty, a woman whose dark ambitions and insatiable thirst for power led her down a path of unspeakable evil. Listen closely, for this is not just a story of the past. It is a warning, a reminder of the thin veil that separates our world from the unknown. It is a story of a young scholar named Stefan, whose curiosity led him into the heart of the darkness, and of the horrors he uncovered there. This, dear listeners, is the tale of the Valley of Shadows, and the curse that still haunts it to this day. The village and its secrets. Villa Umbriler was a small village, a tight-knit community where everyone knew each other's business. The villagers were simple folk, mostly farmers and shepherds, living off the land and the few resources they could gather from the surrounding forest. The village's name, Valley of Shadows, was well earned. The thick canopy of trees seemed to perpetually cast the village in a gloomy twilight. Even at midday, the villagers spoke in hushed tones about the old manor hidden deep within the forest. It was said to be the home of the Countess Maria Kalinesti, a woman whose name was spoken with a mixture of fear and loathing. According to the legend, the Countess had been a beautiful but wicked woman who ruled the valley with an iron fist. She was rumored to have dabbled in dark rituals and sought to gain eternal life through the most nefarious means. The manor had burned down one winter night, decades ago. The villagers had seen the flames from a distance, but were too afraid to approach. The screams that echoed through the forest were enough to chill their blood. When morning came, they found the manor reduced to ashes, with no sign of the Countess. It was believed that her spirit still haunted the ruins, seeking vengeance for her untimely demise. The scholar's arrival. In the winter of 1897, a young scholar named Stefan arrived in Villa Umbriler. Stefan was a man of curiosity and intellect, with a keen interest in the occult and the supernatural. He had heard whispers of the Countess's legend during his studies in Bucharest, and was determined to uncover the truth behind the haunting tale. Stefan was welcomed with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. The villagers were wary of outsiders, especially those who expressed interest in the old manor and its dark history. They warned him of the dangers that lurked in the forest, but Stefan was undeterred. He believed the legend to be nothing more than a collection of superstitions and old wives' tales. Stefan took up residence in a small, rustic cottage at the edge of the village. From there, he began his research, poring over old documents and speaking with the elders who still remembered the night of the fire. Despite their reluctance, some villagers shared their stories, each adding a piece to the puzzle that was the Countess Maria Kalinesti. The journey into the forest. After months of research, Stefan believed he had enough information to venture into the forest and find the ruins of the manor. The villagers, seeing his determination, gave him an old, tattered map that had been passed down through the generations. It showed a path leading through the forest to the manor, a path long overgrown and forgotten. On a moonless night, Stefan set out with a lantern and the map, determined to uncover the truth. The forest was a dark, foreboding place, with trees that seemed to close in around him. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant hoot of an owl. As he walked, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Hours passed, and the forest grew denser. The path was barely discernible, and Stefan had to rely on the map and his instincts to find his way. Finally, he stumbled upon a clearing, and there, bathed in the pale light of his lantern, stood the ruins of the manor. The discovery: the manor was a crumbling shell of its former self, overgrown with vines and covered in moss. Stefan explored the ruins, careful not to disturb anything. As he ventured deeper, he discovered a hidden chamber beneath the floorboards. Inside, he found ancient tomes and strange artifacts, confirming the Countess's dark practices. Among them was a journal, detailing her quest for eternal life, and the horrific sacrifices she had made. As Stefan read, a sudden gust of wind extinguished his lantern, plunging him into darkness. He felt a cold, bony hand grasp his shoulder, and a whisper, barely audible, filled his ears. "You should not have come here." Terror seized him as he turned to face the ghostly apparition of the Countess, her eyes burning with an unholy light. Stefan's blood ran cold as he stared into the Countess's eyes. She was a spectral figure, her form translucent yet vividly terrifying. Her beauty was marred by a malevolent expression, and her presence exuded an overwhelming sense of dread. He escaped. In that moment, Stefan's rational mind crumbled under the weight of pure, primal fear. He stumbled backward, his lantern falling from his grasp and shattering on the ground. The Countess's laughter echoed through the ruins, the sound that seemed to pierce his very soul. With every ounce of strength, Stefan turned and fled. The forest that had seemed foreboding on his journey and now felt like a labyrinth of terror as he blindly ran through the trees. Branches clawed at his clothes, and unseen roots threatened to trip him at every step. The Countess's laughter and whispers followed him, growing louder, closer. Somehow, through sheer will and desperation, Stefan broke free from the forest's grasp and collapsed at the edge of the village. The first rays of dawn were just beginning to break through the trees, casting a faint light on his haggard form. The villagers found him there, his hair turned white with fright, his eyes vacant and haunted.